few aircraft capture the imagination quite like the English Electric Lightning. With its astonishing climb rate, blistering speed, and unique place in aviation history, the Lightning was more than just a fighter jet. It was Britain's bold step into the supersonic age. From its experimental beginnings to its legendary service career, the Lightning remains both a marvel of engineering and a machine surrounded by fascinating stories. Not least the extraordinary day an engineer with no supersonic training found himself at its controls. Breaking the sound barrier by accident and design. When English Electric began developing the prototype P1 in the early 1950s, the goal was simple but ambitious. Create a fighter that could intercept hostile aircraft faster and higher than anything before it. Even in its earliest trials, the Lightning prototype smashed through the sound barrier with ease. As development continued, it proved capable of reaching Mach 2, twice the speed of sound. But it wasn't just speed. The Lightning's power-to-weight ratio was so remarkable that pilots claimed it could go supersonic while climbing vertically. That was a staggering leap from the subsonic jets of the day, and it gave Britain's Royal Air Force a fearsome interceptor. One of the most famous stories surrounding the Lightning, however, wasn't about planned testing or carefully orchestrated missions. It was about a maintenance officer named Wing Commander Taffy Holden, who in 1966 accidentally found himself flying the jet, despite having no training on supersonic fighters. He managed not only to get airborne but also land the aircraft safely, a feat that entered aviation legend. Britain's jet pioneers. The Lightning's origins lay in Britain's leadership in jet innovation. The Gloucester Meteor, the RAF's first operational jet fighter, had already entered service before the Second World War ended, giving Britain a technological edge. However, that lead was dented when the UK government sold advanced jet engine technology to the Soviet Union. The Soviets reverse-engineered the design to power the MiG-15, a fighter that gave Western aircraft serious trouble during the Korean War. Meanwhile, Britain had been working on the Miles M52, an ambitious supersonic project that might have beaten the Americans in breaking the sound barrier. Political decisions, however, scrapped the project, and much of its research ended up influencing American designs instead. Out of this climate of ambition and frustration emerged the Lightning. With its distinctive 60-degree swept wings and stacked engines, it looked futuristic, even unconventional. Critics feared it would be unstable. Pilots, however, discovered it was surprisingly docile, though landing speeds of around 180 knots, compared to 90 in older fighters, certainly kept them on their toes. The Point Defense Interceptor. The Lightning was designed as a pure interceptor, not a long-range multi-role fighter. Its mission was to defend Britain's skies in much the same way the Spitfires and Hurricanes had done during the Battle of Britain. Initially, it was tasked with protecting the RAF's V-bomber bases, which housed Britain's nuclear deterrent force, the Vulcan, Victor, and Valiant bombers. Later, Lightnings were deployed in Germany and other stations around the world, ready to counter Soviet aircraft making high-altitude reconnaissance flights. RAF pilots developed daring tactics to meet this challenge. They would push the jet to maximum speed at around 40,000 feet, then pull up sharply, riding momentum to climb as high as 60,000 feet. At that altitude, the Lightning would level off only briefly before losing energy, but it was often enough to get close to intruding aircraft. The White Paper and the Last British Fighter. The Lightning's career was shaped by politics as much as by performance. In 1957, Defense Minister Duncan Sandys released a controversial white paper declaring that surface-to-air missiles would soon replace manned fighters. That view cut short Britain's investment in next-generation aircraft. As a result, the Lightning became the last fully British-designed supersonic fighter ever to serve with the RAF. Though it was upgraded over time, fuel capacity increased, new missiles added, and even ferry tanks strapped above the wings, the Lightning remained fundamentally a short-range interceptor. Its limited endurance, often no more than 30 minutes of combat time, hindered its export prospects. Only Saudi Arabia and Kuwait bought the aircraft, yet within those forces, the Lightning adapted beyond interception. even carrying bombs and rockets in the ground attack roles. Armament, fire, and steel. In its earliest versions, the Lightning carried 2 Firestreak missiles, infrared homing weapons designed to track the heat of Soviet bombers. Later versions upgraded to the Red Top missile, which had a more advanced seeker, a larger warhead, and greater range. Equally important to many pilots was the presence of guns. Most variants carried 2 30mm ADEN cannons, though one version, the F.3, removed them, much to the pilot's frustration. Complaints were so strong that the cannons were reintroduced, proof that fighter pilots of the 1960s weren't quite ready to give up on dogfighting. The legend of Taffy Holden. Perhaps no tale better illustrates the Lightning's mix of danger and drama than that of Wing Commander John Taffy Holden. In 1966, Holden was working as an engineering officer at RAF Lineham. A Lightning under his unit's care had recurring engine instrument issues when engaging reheat afterburners. Test pilots were unavailable, but Holden, who had some flying background from earlier in his career, decided to run ground tests himself. Strapped in without a helmet and wearing ordinary clothes, Holden fired up the Lightning. When the reheat unexpectedly engaged, the jet began rolling forward. Unable to disengage it, Holden faced a split-second choice: crash or fly. As luck, or fate, would have it, a de Havilland Comet transport plane was taking off on the main runway ahead of him. To avoid collision, Holden yanked the control stick. The Lightning leapt into the air. For the next few minutes, stunned colleagues watched as the untrained officer calmly circled the airfield. With no helmet, no ejection training, and no preparation, Holden managed a steady circuit and lined up with a secondary runway. Miraculously, he touched down safely, coasting to a halt without even a braking parachute. When he climbed out, disheveled and apologetic, his commanding officer reportedly told him, "I'm not at all sorry, Taff." That was brilliant. Holden's logbook records the flight dryly as 5-minute solo in a Lightning. It was perhaps the most extraordinary 5 minutes of his career. Service and legacy. The Lightning entered RAF service in the late 1950s and remained operational until 1988, when it was replaced by the Tornado F.3. Many pilots who transitioned lamented leaving the Lightning behind, calling it a pilot's aircraft that looked right, flew right, and inspired awe. Nicknamed the aluminium death tube for its ferocious performance, the Lightning was both loved and feared. Pilots joked that they were with it all the way to the handbrake off, a nod to its blistering acceleration from the moment the brakes released. At Duxford, one of the surviving F-1 Lightnings stands preserved, including the very aircraft tied to Holden's legendary flight. It is a reminder of a machine that combined sheer speed with uncompromising design, a jet that demanded respect from those who flew it. Why the Lightning still captures hearts. The English Electric Lightning wasn't perfect. Its short-range, limited strategic value and politics curtailed its potential as a more versatile fighter. But it symbolized a golden age of British engineering ingenuity, when designers achieved extraordinary feats with minimal resources and maximum daring. For aviation enthusiasts, it remains iconic for 3 reasons: its unmatched vertical climb and raw acceleration, its distinctive twin overlapping engine layout and razor-thin profile, and the dramatic stories that surround it, from Cold War intercepts to Taffy Holden's accidental flight. Even decades after retirement, the Lightning endures in memory as Britain's supersonic dream made real, recalled in the visceral thunder of its engines and the gleaming streak it left across the sky. And that's the incredible story of the English Electric Lightning, Britain's supersonic arrow that could climb like a rocket and still inspire awe today. If you enjoyed learning about this Cold War icon and the unbelievable tale of Taffy Holden's accidental flight, make sure to hit that like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.